There are not many people studying
She's director of the
marijuana.
Cognitive and
We have with us
Clinical
Dr. Staci
Neuroimaging
Gruber,
Core at
and she's the
McLean
director
Hospital's
of
Brain Imaging Center,
It's very
also an
difficult to
associate
get
professor of
approval to study
psychiatry at Harvard
marijuana.
Medical School.
You know, you're a doc, I'm a doc, and when I first met you a year and a half ago, we were in the process of making a documentary.
Well, my patients call me pot doc.
Your patients call you pot doc?
Well, they never meet anybody who's as interested in hearing about their marijuana use as I am.
Harvard University's Dr. Staci Gruber has been researching marijuana since the early 1990s.
This is high times in marijuana research. It really is. What I need you to do is identify the number that's different, okay?
We are looking at the science of marijuana, the impacts on the brain.
But if any of you wonder if there's really any utility in giving any kind of cannabinoid-based therapy to any child, I give you Charlotte Figge. What you're seeing is a little girl with Dravet syndrome, okay? This little girl had upwards of 300 seizures a day and had no ability to walk, no ability to play with other children. She was limited in her ability to do everything. This placed a huge burden on her family, not to mention her, and she was absolutely living a tortuous life. With regard to medical marijuana, the Stanley brothers, Colorado's own, stunningly beautiful, 5 blonde brothers. It must be my theme song, I don't know. But I can tell you that in fact what they did was they created something very high in CBD, cannabidiol. You remember I told you that's the substance that doesn't make you high. 17% CBD and 0.5% THC gave that little girl the ability to walk and dance and talk and go back to a normal life, okay? A normal life. So I know it's controversial, but I also know we need further research. You cannot ignore the plight of little children who are seemingly improved with very little with regard to medical therapy.
Dr. Staci Gruber from Harvard Medical School isn't here to tell these kids not to smoke marijuana.
We never say never, because again, it almost never works, almost never.
She says if kids choose to smoke, they need to wait a while.
The brain develops from the back to the front and from the bottom to the top.
The frontal lobe, a critical part of the brain, is the last to develop in young kids. Gruber says pot use can cause long-term damage to the brain.
Being able to make good and sound decisions, especially during stressful times. Being able to utilize feedback in real time and change your behavior.
As recreational pot sales surge in Washington, Dr. Gruber says the perception of the risk is at an all-time low.
All this dialogue is wonderful, except it may very well add to the perception. How can it be so bad if we're all talking about it?
She hopes science will help steer kids in the right direction.
My question, basically, Staci, is for you.
I think we're seeing a little bit of a change, and we talked a little bit about this today, in terms of things like Epidiolex, which is manufactured by GW Pharma, not a US company, but a UK company. And so for the first time, this drug was granted orphan status, and in fact is in clinical trial, phase 1 clinical trials in kids with pediatric epilepsy in both New York and San Diego. So it's starting. I think there's been some motion, and there's, I believe, a clinical trial funded by NIDA that uses Sativex, also a UK GW Pharma product. People often think of marijuana as one thing. You know, pot, marijuana, it's one thing, when in fact we know it isn't. What's your feeling about explaining to the public the differences between the constituents in marijuana and how they may exert different effects?
I thought it was fascinating what you shared with me today, that people, especially again at a young age, who are using marijuana regularly, recreationally, we can now objectively see some of the changes in their brain.
We do see changes in white matter in terms of earlier versus later onset of smoking, which is a concern for recreational users, and I always get the question, which is why I posed it to you. Well, what do we think is going to happen with medical marijuana? Will the same thing be the result? And we just don't know yet.
What do you think, Professor Gruber?
I think that at this point, policy has outpaced science, and we have laws that have been passed. You know, we have so-called medical marijuana in 23 states plus D.C., and recreational marijuana legal in 2 states, without a huge amount of fundamental, empirically driven studies to support some of the aspects that undoubtedly come up.